It all started on a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind where you're just trying to enjoy your weekend in peace. I had just finished installing a smart lock on my Phrygia. A smart lock, nothing crazy. It was more for keeping my roommates' curious snacks away from my meal preps than anything else. But apparently, that was enough to spark full-blown chaos with my neighbor, Karen, who somehow thought this was a neighborhood emergency. I kid you not, she called 911 on me, over a fridge lock. I wish I was exaggerating. One moment I'm setting up the app to control the fridge lock, and the next I hear angry banging on my front door. Karen is yelling from my porch like I've committed a federal crime. She's shouting about surveillance, hacking, and even biometric data, like I'm running a top-secret lab inside my kitchen. I told her politely, at first, that it's none of her business what appliances I use inside my own home. But she wasn't having it. That's when she pulled out her phone and dialed 911, claiming I was tampering with community safety. Here's where it gets worse. She didn't just stop at the call. While I was still standing inside, trying to figure out if this was some sort of prank, I caught her inside my backyard. That's right, Karen had walked around the side of my house and was now trying to peek through my kitchen window, probably looking for evidence. At this point, it wasn't just nosiness, it was trespassing now. I know what you're thinking. How could this even happen over something as simple as a smart fridge lock? Trust me, I thought the same. But what came next turned a ridiculous situation into something way more serious. And I had to make a decision fast to really understand how we ended up in this mess. You've got to know a little about Karen. She lives 2 houses down and has made it her full-time job to monitor everyone else's lives. Whether it's the color of your trash bins, how long your car's been in the driveway, or when your grass was last trimmed, Karen notices. She's the self-declared protector of the neighborhood, even though she's not on the HOA board or any official committee. And ever since I moved in, she's had a weird obsession with what I do around my place. A few weeks before the smart lock incident, she had already complained about the solar lights I added to my front yard. She said they were disrupting the natural ecosystem. Another time, she left a handwritten note taped to my door because my package sat outside for more than 2 hours. But this time, the fridge lock really sent her over the edge, and I still can't figure out why. What's even stranger is that she somehow knew I installed it. I hadn't told anyone, and it wasn't visible from any windows. So unless she was snooping around or watching me through my own windows, how would she know? That's the part that made my skin crawl. The thought that she might have been watching me inside my house gave the whole situation a much creepier vibe. When she walked into my backyard uninvited, all while I was still trying to get her to leave me alone, that's when it felt like something deeper was going on. It wasn't just about the fridge or some overreaction. She seemed genuinely convinced that I was doing something suspicious. But what could possibly be suspicious about locking a fridge? And why did she think it was enough to call the cops? Grabbed my phone, ready to document everything. I had no idea how far she was going to take this. As I hit record on my phone, Karen was already pacing back and forth along my back porch, peering in like she owned the place. I called out to her firm, but come telling her she had no right to be there. She shot back with, "I have every right to protect this neighborhood." Her voice was shaky, but loud enough that a few other neighbors peeked through their blinds. Some even came out onto their porches. Watching like this was a neighborhood drama unfolding in real time. That's when she noticed I was filming. Her face changed. She got defensive, started yelling that I was violating her privacy, which was ironic, considering she was the one trespassing. The whole situation felt upside down. I mean, here I was, just trying to live my life and keep my food safe from nosy roommates. And now I was being accused of some tech conspiracy by a neighbor who barely knew how to open her email then. Out of nowhere, her son Jake showed up. I hadn't seen him in months, But suddenly he came jogging down the sidewalk toward my yard. He looked embarrassed, clearly already knowing how his mom can be. He tried to calm her down, but she wasn't hearing it. Karen doubled down, pointing at my house, saying something about networked devices and recording neighbors without consent. I was stunned. Was she seriously trying to say a smart fridge lock could record people? Meanwhile, Jake quietly pulled me aside and said, "She's been stressed since she saw that article about smart devices spying on people. She thinks everything now is part of some big plan." That explained a lot, but also raised more questions. How far was she willing to go over this idea? Was this just paranoia or something more? Then the sound of distant sirens started creeping closer, and everything froze. As the sirens got louder, Karen froze in place, like she'd just realized the weight of what she'd done. But instead of backing off, she did the exact opposite. She stormed back through my yard toward the front, shouting to the growing number of neighbors that I was running illegal surveillance and tampering with security infrastructure. I honestly couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. Smart lock on my fridge had now turned into a full-blown neighborhood scandal, all fueled by one woman's wild imagination. By the time the police cruiser pulled up, there were at least 5 people outside, including one neighbor live streaming the whole thing on social media. Karen immediately flagged the officer down, launching into her bizarre claims before he could even step out of the car. She pointed at my house, then at me, calling me a tech stalker and saying I had devices that could intercept personal data. Her eyes were wide, her hands shaking. To anyone else, it might have looked like she was genuinely scared, but I knew it wasn't about fear. It was control. Karen needed to feel like she could dictate what was normal around here. The officer turned to me next, asking if I had any cameras or monitoring devices pointing at her home. I told him no. I explained everything, how I'd simply installed a smart lock on my fridge to stop food from going missing. That's it. No cameras, no spying. Just a fridge lock connected to an app. But the way the cop looked at me, I could tell he wasn't sure who to believe yet. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. Karen was putting on a full performance. Then, just as I was about to show him the smart lock app on my phone, Karen reached into her bag and pulled something out, something small, black, and shiny. The officer immediately tensed up, hand near his belt. My heart dropped. Everything went still. Karen slowly lifted her hand, revealing the object hand to everyone's shock. It was a small USB stick. She held it up like it was some kind of smoking gun. "This," she said, breathless and dramatic, "is proof. I found this near my fence last week. It's yours, isn't it?" The officer looked at me, clearly confused, and so was I. I had never seen that USB before in my life. She went on, claiming that she plugged it into her computer and it immediately caused weird things to happen. Her email glitching, her browser crashing, even her TV randomly turning on at night. She swore it was some sort of hacking device that I had carelessly dropped. My mouth dropped open. Was she really trying to frame me now? I couldn't even process how quickly things had escalated from a fridge lock to some neighborhood spy thriller. The officer took the USB carefully and said it would need to be checked by tech forensics. I couldn't believe it. Now I was being looped into some fake cybercrime over something I had nothing to do with. The people watching from the sidewalk started whispering, some looking at me with doubt in their eyes. One even backed away slowly, like I might infect their Wi-Fi just by standing there. And then came the twist I never saw coming. Jake, Karen's son, stepped forward and quietly said, "That USB ... I think that might be mine." Everyone turned to him. Karen's face went pale. "I was doing a school project a while back about network security and forgot it in the backyard after helping you with the hedges," he said, eyes low. The crowd murmured, and the officer stared at Karen, who looked like the ground had dropped out from under her. But before anyone could say a word, a second cruiser pulled up and out, stepped someone in a suit with a badge that didn't belong to the local police. The suited man stepped out of the second cruiser with calm authority, flashing a badge that read Cybercrime Division. That name alone made the tension spike again. Karen looked both thrilled and terrified, clearly convinced this was her moment of vindication. But the officer didn't approach her. He walked directly to Jake. "I'm here following up on an earlier flagged file upload from this neighborhood," he said. "It came from a school research project that accidentally triggered our filters." Jake's face turned bright red. He stammered, "It was just a demo file for Class I. Didn't think it would actually ping anything serious." The cybercrime agent nodded and said it was nothing malicious, just an innocent mix-up, but protocol required them to investigate any odd data patterns. He then looked at the original officer and said calmly, "This has nothing to do with your neighbor's fridge." The look on Karen's face was priceless. Her whole conspiracy unraveled in front of the entire neighborhood. She opened her mouth to protest, but the officer cut her off. "Ma'am, at this point, your action's calling. 911 under false pretenses and trespassing are serious." That's when the neighbors, who'd been quietly judging the whole time, started nodding and whispering things like she went too far this time and she really thought a fridge lock was dangerous. I felt a mix of relief and disbelief. I had just been dragged through a full-on public meltdown over a smart fridge lock. But before things could settle down, the cybercrime agent turned to me and added one more thing. "By the way, your smart lock is on a very outdated firmware. I'd want to update that. It's not spying, but it's not exactly safe either." Everyone laughed nervously. Even Jake cracked a smile. But Karen? She turned, walked back to her house in silence, and slammed the door without saying a word. That part felt final, at least for now, after Karen stormed off and the officers cleared the scene. The neighborhood slowly returned to normal, as normal as it could after a full-on showdown over a smart fridge lock. A few neighbors came over to quietly apologize for not stepping in sooner. One even brought over cookies as a peace offering, joking that next time I should just put a password on the cookie jar too. I laughed, but deep down I was still processing how fast things spiraled. Jake sent me a message later that evening, thanking me for not pressing charges against his mom. He admitted she'd been having a rough time lately and had started spiraling with all the tech fear-mongering she'd been reading online. It didn't excuse what she did, but it gave a little context. I told him it was fine, as long as the trespassing stopped for good. As for me, I finally updated the smart lock firmware and even added a second layer of security just in case. Not because I was worried about spying, but because I'd learned that people can take the smallest, most harmless thing and blow it way out of proportion. It's wild how something like home technology meant to make life simpler ended up being the trigger for all this neighborhood drama. The good news: things have been quiet since then. Karen hasn't said a word to me, and honestly, I'm fine with that. I still have the video saved, just in case anything else happens. But for now, peace has returned. And yes, my fridge is still locked. Not for national security reasons, just to keep my leftovers safe. Sometimes, the smallest boundaries protect you from the biggest nonsense. And in this neighborhood, that smart lock turned out to be one of the smartest choices I've made.